everyone, welcome back to my channel. So if you can't tell, I'm in the dark right now. That's because it's currently 11:30 p.m. So I'm dedicated. So today's video is basically going to be me giving you the rundown on the Lsat, which is basically the placement test for people applying to law school. I'm going to be giving you the rundown on the structure of the test, the time limits of the test, what each section is kind of like, and then I'll give you some tips and tricks and pointers that I used when I took the Lsat to apply to law school. So the test basically has 4 sections that are scored, and each section is 35 minutes long. So you've got 35 minutes to answer all of the questions, and each question is a multiple choice question. You'll have 2 logical reasoning sections, 1 logic games section, and then 1 reading comprehension section. So the logical reasoning section is kind of the most important section. It's going to come up 2 times on the Lsat. And that's because this section basically tests you on how well you can analyze arguments. They're going to have you decide which argument is strongest, which argument is weakest, and on top of that, you have to figure out why the argument is strong or why the argument is weak. So for example, they might give you a passage detailing a debate between Christie and Henry on renewable resources. You'll then have to look at each argument and decide which one was better and why. They also might have you decide which argument was weaker and why. The tricky part here is that you'll have to decide which point of the argument was better, and there could be multiple good points made in the argument. So the trick there is to figure out which one is stronger, not which one is strong. So you could have 3 really good arguments, 2 of them are strong, 1 of them is strongest, and that would be the one that they would want you to pick. The next section is the reading comprehension section, and this one is a lot more straightforward than the other 2, just because it's kind of similar to what you would do on the FCAT or English exams. This one is just a bit more in depth, actually a lot more in depth, like Lsat or like FCAT on steroids. But basically what you'll do for the reading comprehension section is they'll give you a passage and they'll have you figure out the main ideas, make inferences, and extrapolate on what you've read in the passage. There'll be scholarly passages and pieces from historic literature. Sometimes they'll give you 2 passages, and when you get 2 passages, you'll know that they'll want you to be comparing and contrasting those 2 passages. So, for example, they might give you a passage that is about marine biology, and it's written by a professor from a university. They'll then have you answer questions based on the main ideas of that passage, but they also might have you answer questions about what would that professor also support. So, based on the professor's literature, which of these following statements would the professor be likely to also support based on what you deduced from what they wrote in the literature? So they basically are making you elaborate on what you've read. So not only just analyzing the piece of work that you have in front of you, but applying that to other hypothetical situations, which is pretty much what you do in law school. So it's that part of the test is a pretty good practice. So the last section is the logic games section, formerly called the analytical reasoning section. This section is insane, in my opinion. It was the most difficult section for me to learn how to answer and analyze, and I think that's just because of the nature of the questions they'll give you. So for this section, they're basically testing you on deductive reasoning and data structure. They'll basically want you to be able to handle sequencing and matching and a little bit of both at times, and it's basically very, very, very helpful to create charts and flow charts and diagrams and pictures of what you are reading. So when you read a problem, make a little chart, make a little diagram so that you can see the relation of the different characters in the hypothetical situation, and so that you can easily plot out your answers. So a common example of a logic games question structure that I came across a lot when I was practicing is the example of the work week. So basically they'll have 5 different people. They all have 5 different work schedules on 5 different days of the week. So you will have to sketch out who works when, who does what task on which days. They'll give you a rule and say, Tony never works on Tuesdays. Lisa only does the laundry on Thursdays. And Matthew works every other day, but on the even days, he does vacuuming. So then they'll give you all of this information and you have to plot out who basically does what on each day, so that once you have a basic framework of the rule that they've given you, after that they'll start extrapolating upon that rule. So you'll take the original rule that they gave you, you'll use the chart that you made, and then you'll apply the other questions they're asking you. So they might give you that framework, and then another question will say, Lisa decides not to come in on Thursday and asks Matthew to cover for her. What would the structure look like then? Or who would be the last person to work that week? Or which task would not get done on this day? It's really confusing and frustrating because it's just a lot of sequencing and order, and it's heavily analytical. I don't think I explained that well, but I tried. It's a difficult concept and they're difficult questions. They're very complicated, but I will say that once you learn how to answer the questions, and mostly once you learn how to structure the questions and how to map them out and illustrate them for yourself, you're fine. It's smooth sailing. There is one more section to the test. I kind of lied in the beginning. There are actually 5 multiple choice sections. However, only 4 of them are scored. So you'll have 5 multiple choice sections, and whichever section you see twice, you know that one of those sections is going to be the unscored section. So if you have 2 logical reasoning sections, 1 logic game section, and 1 reading comprehension section, if you see a 3rd logical reasoning section, you know that one of those sections is going to be the unscored section. If you have 2 logic game sections, you know that one of those sections is going to be the unscored section. And if you have 2 reading comprehension sections, one of them is going to be the unscored section. It's absolutely impossible to figure out which one is actually the unscored section. So it's just best to not even think about it. Just answer each section as if they're all scored, because you're not the one who's going to be able to control that. So in addition to the multiple choice sections, you'll have one more section that's not multiple choice, and it's going to be 35 minutes long, and that will be your essay section. This will basically serve as a writing sample, and it allows law school admissions officers to kind of see how you write, see how you argue. The whole point of this is just for you to get your arguing out there. It's the most law school / lawyer-esque thing on the exam. They'll give you a situation and they'll present 2 opposing sides, and in your essay, your whole job is to just write for 35 minutes as much as you can about why you think one of the arguments is better than the other. Pretty straightforward. That basically sums up the structure of the Lsat. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into little tips and tricks and pointers. So it's been a few years since I took the Lsat right about now, but I think pretty much everything that I'm about to say is applicable and helpful. But I am by no means an expert on this test. This is just coming from my own personal experience and things that worked for me that I think might work for you and might be beneficial in looking into. So the first tip I would give you guys is to figure out when you actually want to take the test. I believe the Lsat is offered a few times in the year, so in order to give yourself an adequate amount of time to prepare and to study without being overly stressed, determine when you want to actually take the test so you know how far out to begin studying and preparing. I would say give yourself about 6 months to fully prepare, just so that you're not cramming everything and so that you have time to pace yourself and figure out your weaknesses and your strengths. So if you're taking the test in February, you don't want to start studying in December. That's not good. The test is already stressful. It's already a stressful enough time preparing for it. You don't want to add lack of time to the equation. Also, you want to figure out which materials you're going to need. There are quite a few test prep companies out there that specialize in Lsat testing, and each one is different. They cover pretty much the same material, but their teaching styles are different, their materials might be different, and their time structure might be different. And certain companies and certain programs might work best for you. So I would recommend doing some research into those companies and into their schedules and into their prices as well, because that's important. The LSAT is kind of your first taste of the expensive law school process. It is not cheap. There are ways to do it in a more affordable way. The materials you get do not have to be new, but just make sure that they are at least recent so that you are not using outdated materials. If you have a friend or family member who recently took the LSAT, feel free to contact them, hound them, harass them so that you can use their materials, because the more money you can save, the better. Also figure out your method of studying. Which method of studying would benefit you more? So you can basically self-study, which means you get your own materials and you kind of go through the materials yourself and the program, and you basically figure out the LSAT for yourself. That works really well for a lot of people, and it is the most cost-effective option. You can also do an online program. So basically it's like a virtual learning program. You tune into a lecture that's given online by an LSAT testing master, and you can follow along with your own materials at home. So you've got a little bit of guidance there, and you're able to ask them questions as well. The third style is an in-person class. So basically they'll set up a structure and a schedule, and you'll go to an in-person class somewhere near you, and they'll basically be there in person. You can raise your hand, you can ask questions after class, you can have interactive practice things, and it's very helpful. That is the most expensive preparation option. However, it is very beneficial as well. I can tell you I am not a good virtual learner. I'm also not a good self-learner. I need someone to tell me what to do. I need structure, and I need to not be able to chicken out or lay around on my bed eating chips and not paying attention. So I needed to do an in-person class. I was able to pay for the in-person class and go there for about 4 months in the year to prepare for the LSAT. This was really beneficial for me, I think, because it allowed me to have accountability, and it forced me to be there in the moment, asking questions, learning the material, and discussing what I got wrong and what I got right with other people in the class. Speaking of what I got right and what I got wrong, pay attention to what you don't do well. Pay attention to your weaknesses, pay attention to your strengths, so that you can know how to divide up your time. If you know that reading comprehension is like that for you and it's easy, don't spend as much time preparing for that section. Maybe put more time into logic games or logical reasoning, the sections that are the most difficult for you. Also, I forgot to mention, you don't get points taken off for wrong answers on the LSAT, as far as I know. So that means you can guess. Guessing is your friend. If you're running out of time at the end of it and you've still got 5 questions that you haven't answered, don't leave them blank out of fear of getting them wrong. Just answer them, because if you get some of them right, great. If you get some of them wrong, who cares? It doesn't count. If you get them all right, awesome. So basically, guessing will only help you. Nothing will hurt you. Pacing yourself is also extremely, extremely important. This exam is long and tedious, and you're gonna wanna take a bathroom break, you're gonna wanna stretch your legs, you're gonna wanna eat a snack, but you have to make sure that you are paying attention to your time. Each section is about 25 to 27 questions, and you've got 35 minutes to answer each question. So that feels like you've got more than enough time to answer each question, but when you think about it, these aren't regular multiple choice questions. These are very in-depth, and you're going to need to think about them. And if you're spending too much time on one question, you're losing out time on other questions that you could be answering. So answer the easy questions first. And finally, I would just say don't be afraid to take the test twice. I personally had to take it twice, and I was worried that law schools would think that I was not as smart as other students who maybe only took it once. But you have to remember that this is all about your score and your satisfaction. So if you don't think that you did as well as you could have possibly done the first time, don't be afraid to take the test a second time. It's tedious and you'll have to pay to sit and take the test again. However, a 3 to 4 point jump in your Lsat scores is significant. If you end up with a 154 and you jump 6 points to a 160, that is significant. So don't ever let anyone make you feel bad about taking the test more than once, because this is all about you and this is all about how satisfied you are with your work. So if you feel like you didn't have enough time to prepare or practice, or you felt like you were distracted, or you wanted to sit down and take the test again because now you're more familiar with the format and the time limits, do it. I had a 10-point jump in my score the second time I took it compared to the first one. And that was just because I was more comfortable and I was more confident the second time around because I already knew what to expect. And law schools are more inclined to look at the highest score. So if you've got 2 Lsat tests that you've taken and you've got a higher score, law schools are more likely to just go off of that one. And remember to pace yourself and be patient with yourself. This is difficult, it's complicated, and it's tricky, and they're purposely trying to trick you, which is awesome. Just remember that this is the first time you're taking a test like this. This isn't like the FCAT, this isn't like any other standardized test. It's hard, and you haven't even started law school yet. This is the beginning of your law school application process. So just know that you're okay, you're gonna be all right, and you just need to work with yourself and to have grace for yourself. All right, so that's pretty much it. That's all I had for this video. I just wanted to give you guys some tips and tricks about the Lsat because I know it is intimidating and it's daunting. That's exactly how I felt. So it would have been helpful to have someone to kind of give me the pointers and some tricks and just some little ways to cope with the stress that I was under. Let me know what videos you guys want to see in the comments below. Also, if you have any extra questions about the Lsat and law school and paying for the Lsat and getting through the Lsat, DM me, message me, follow me on Instagram, anything. I'm here, I'm willing to help. I'm more than willing to help because it's important for us to help each other and train up the next generation of attorneys. Make sure to like and comment on this video and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to get notifications about when I upload new videos, go ahead and hit that notification bell and they'll send you a little email, a little notification, and we can chill. So that's all, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.